Yamagata. I still vividly remember that day in the early spring of 1868, when the air in Kyoto was filled with signs of change. As protector of Kyoto, I was charged with diffusing the tension between the shogunate and the emperor, but things were not easy.
Can you tell us a little more about the political situation at that time?
Of course, since the arrival of Perry, the country had been greatly shaken by foreign pressure to open the country and the movement to exclude the emperor and expel the barbarians. And with the return of the Grand Council of State by Kiki, the shogunate was coming to an end, both in name and in reality. My position as a supporter of the old shogunate made it very difficult to know how to respond to the new government.
I am interested in how Lord Yoho made his decision to move in Kyoto.
My role in Kyoto was actually to serve as a plank between the old and new regimes. In particular, at the time of the Forbidden Gate incident, the forces of the Satsuma and Choshu clashed with those of the shogunate, and I had to work hard to defend the shogunate's position.
In fact, the Forbidden Change had a great impact on the political situation in Kyoto, didn't it?
Yes, the subsequent developments were decisive for us, the Aizu clan. With the establishment of the new government after Kiki's return of the Grand Council of State, our position as a member of the old shogunate faction became extremely delicate.
Then, the situation progressed to the Boshin War, didn't it?
That is correct. The new government was trying to wipe out the old shogunate forces, and the Aizu clan became a target. In May 1868, the new government forces began their conquest against us, and I, along with my clan members, decided to resist at Wakamatsu Castle.
Yampo Dono, please tell us a little more about your feelings about your decision to resist.
We, the Aizu clan, had no choice but to stand up to the new government, which was based on the principle of the emperor's exclusion of foreigners, out of pride and loyalty to the shogunate. It was not just a battle, but a fight to protect the survival and honor of the clan.
The Siege of Aizu Wakamatsu Castle involved many casualties. Please tell us about the fierce battle.
The new government forces had overwhelming numbers of soldiers and we were short of food and ammunition. However, the clan members fought with determination to defend the castle to the last.
And you finally decided to surrender.
Yes, the situation in the castle worsened day by day and the clan members and citizens suffered greatly. I felt responsible for all of this and ultimately decided to surrender. I did so because I believed it was the only way to save the clan members and citizens from further suffering.
The decision of Yoho Dono must have been a very heavy one. How was the Aizu domain treated after that?
The new government took harsh measures against us, the Aizu clan. Our clan's territory was reduced and many of our clan members were scattered. However, it can be said that our battle was a part of the process where old and new powers clashed and a new Japan was born.
Indeed, the Aizu War played an important role in establishing the authority of the new government. I have learned a great deal from this story, Mr. Yoho Dono. I believe that the fundamental reason for the outbreak of the Boshin War was the political structure of the end of the Edo period itself. The weakening of the power held by the shogunate and the rise of the idea of respect for the emperor, centered on the emperor, created conflicts within the country.
Certainly, the arrival of Perry and the forced opening of Japan to the outside world shook the authority of the shogunate, but even so, wasn't the new government's policy too radical?
This point is understandable. However, from the standpoint of the new government, it was imperative to quickly eliminate the old shogunate forces and unify the country. The presence of the Aizu clan and other former shogunate factions was seen as an obstacle to this.
We, the Aizu clan, simply followed the orders of the shogunate. I still cannot understand why that would be a threat to the new government.
The new government needed to show consistency in establishing nationwide control. In particular, the presence of a clan as influential and loyal to the old shogunate as the Aizu clan threatened to spread similar resistance to other clans.
We fought to protect the safety and honor of our own clan and our loyalty to the shogunate. And that was an unacceptable act for the new government?
Unfortunately, that is true. The new government's goal of the Meiji Restoration was to eliminate the old power and build a new Japan. In the process, hard-line resistance forces such as the Aizu clan inevitably came into conflict.
But isn't the new government's approach too harsh? We, as members of Japan as well, could have participated in the new regime in some way.
While this may have been ideal, the political situation at the time was extremely tense and the new government needed to establish its authority as soon as possible. The resistance of the Aizu clan was a factor that slowed down the process.
Even if our resistance delayed the new government's rule, how do you feel about the many innocent people who were killed by it?
It is a very sad fact. War always involves many sacrifices, but it is also true that new eras are built through it. However, we must always take the post-war responsibility for those sacrifices very seriously.
I still wonder if that was the right way to go about it, even if it was to build a new era. Could there not have been a more conciliatory way?
It was important to seek a path to reconciliation, but there is no denying that this was a difficult choice to make under the political conditions of the time. It was a difficult choice to prevent a power vacuum and quickly stabilize the country.
Nevertheless, I cannot forget the sacrifices made by the people of Aizu and the clansmen. They were just trying to follow the path they believed in.
Their loyalty and courage are history. But as a new government, it needed to see the bigger picture. That is the difficulty of politics, which sometimes requires tough decisions.
I understand the difficulties of politics, but even so, I sometimes wish there had been a little more mercy in the post-war process.
I agree with you on this point. Perhaps more effort should have been made to ease domestic conflicts by showing a more conciliatory attitude.
From the new government's point of view, our actions may have been seen as an obstacle, but for us it was a fight for our beliefs.
I understand that. History will attest to the beliefs of Yoho Dono and the valiant fight of the Aizu domainers.
Mountain Province, I appreciate your words. However, the world will decide how history will be evaluated in the future.
Indeed it is. History is always being re-evaluated with new perspectives. Our actions will also have different meanings depending on how future generations will view them.
That's right. We just did the best we could in our own time. Many years have passed since the Aizu War ended, but the impact of that war on Japanese history is immeasurable.
Indeed, while that war accelerated Japan's modernization process, it also produced many tragedies.
We, the Aizu clan, were treated harshly after the war. However, I believe that this was a lesson for us to consider reconciliation and integration of Japan as a whole.
The establishment of the authority of the new Meiji government as a result of the war was important in terms of solidifying a step forward as a nation. This led to the establishment of a centralized national system.
Certainly, the establishment of a centralized system was essential for Japan's modernization, but it also resulted in the loss of local uniqueness and autonomy.
This was a source of anguish for the new government. It was not easy to strike a balance between the interests of the nation as a whole and listening to local voices.
Through the Aizu War, many clan members and their families suffered, and how do you think this affected the formation of clan politics later on?
In the process of the former shogunate faction of samurai securing a certain position in the government, their experience and abilities were in part valued. On the other hand, however, their dissatisfaction and grief also became a factor in creating new political tensions.
After the war was over, I sometimes felt that the harshness toward us Aizu people was sometimes too harsh.
A more flexible attitude in the post-war process might have been possible. However, the government of the time needed to take decisive steps to establish a new order.
So the strategy of how to incorporate people from the old shogunate faction within the framework of the new government was very important.
Yes, we needed to ensure their loyalty to the new political system while drawing on their knowledge and experience.
I feel that the Aizu War had a profound impact on subsequent Japanese culture and society. In particular, the values of loyalty and courage were emphasized.
On the cultural side, stories such as the Byakutai of Aizu were passed down as heroic tales and widely spread among the people. This contributed to the formation of a new nation-state identity.
Indeed, such stories were deeply engraved in people's minds and helped shape Japanese spirituality.
However, the tragedy of war has also influenced many literary works and the arts, which often depict themes of grief and sacrifice.
The art produced by the pain of war is sometimes beautiful and sometimes sad. Perhaps it also shows the depth of our national culture.
Japan has certainly overcome many hardships through the turbulent period at the end of the Edo period, including the Aizu War. However, it is undeniable that these experiences have served as the foundation for shaping today's Japan.
That's right. We must never forget that the hardships of history have led to the peace we enjoy today. Yamagata, I am still deeply conflicted every time I think back to that decision. I cannot find the answer to whether my pride as the Aizu clan and my resistance to the new government were correct.
I understand your feelings, Yonpo Dono. However, it was necessary for us, the new government, to make a decision at that time in order to unite the country. I believe that this led to the stability of Japan later on.
Certainly, from the standpoint of the new government, its actions were understandable. But for Aizu, it was a process that involved much sacrifice and pain. Our resistance was not just to go against the current of the times, but to protect the honor and survival of the clan.
I respect that honor as well. However, in the face of a new era, we had to make some tough choices in the cause of national unity.
I still carry a deep wound in my heart about taking up the sword against the new government's army. What did I protect and what did I lose then?
Yampo Dono, you fought to protect the pride and responsibility of your clan. That is of great significance. However, a new era requires a new order, and clashes were inevitable in the process.
The suffering that the people of Aizu endured, it still clutches at my heart. From the standpoint of the new government, was it a necessary sacrifice?
Sacrifices in wartime are inevitable. However, it must be said that such sacrifices were unfortunately necessary in order to lay the foundation for a new nation.
Yamagata, do you truly understand our position in Aizu? We just fought for the justice we believe in.
We saw that justice as our enemy, but that is the harsh reality of politics. I too have lost many friends in battle. The pain is as heavy as the anguish you feel, Yobo Dono.
Yes, war is painful for everyone. But sometimes we wonder what the pain was for.
Our pain as a new government was pain to unite Japan and maintain our independence on the international stage. We fought for a greater future.
We must not forget the past, even if it is for the future. Aizu's sacrifice should serve as a lesson for building a new era.
It is our responsibility to apply the lessons learned. We must build a better future so that Aizu's sacrifice will not be in vain.
Yamagata, many years have passed since the Aizu War ended. How do you think this war affected the society of that time?
Indeed, the Aizu War had a multifaceted impact. Particularly in the social aspect, it was an important step toward the establishment of a centralized system of government, and created an opportunity for local power to be concentrated in the central government.
This change greatly undermined the independence of local clans. For a clan like ours, the Aizu clan, which had been conducting its own politics for many years, it was a very big blow.
Certainly, such effects were inevitable. But the achievement of national unity as a whole enabled a united response to foreign nations and strengthened our international position.
Considering its international standing, centralization may indeed have been an inevitable choice to counter foreign pressure since the opening of Japan. However, the suffering faced by many regions in the process was also serious.
What are your thoughts on the impact of the Aizu War on the economy?
In addition to the direct destruction caused by the war, The economy of the Aizu region was severely damaged. Post-war reconstruction was also difficult, and many people struggled to rebuild their lives.
That is a very disappointing result. At the same time, however, the new government focused on post-war economic policies and fostered a modern financial system and industry. This laid the foundation for Japan's later economic development.
In terms of culture, what impact did the Aizu War have?
The upheavals at the end of the Edo period, including the Aizu War, had a great impact on many writers and artists. The tragedy of the war was reflected in poetry, paintings, and literary works, creating a new trend in Japanese culture.
In particular, Aizu's valiant resistance moved many people and inspired many works extolling loyalty and courage. These contributed to the formation of a later national identity.
Such cultural influences were crucial to the spirituality of the people. However, it is also true that many of the works conveyed the horrors of war. This made more people aware of the senselessness and sadness of war.
War brings a lot of pain, but that pain can become a wish for peace later. We can consider that many lessons were learned through the Aizu War.
That's right. History always has something to say to the next generation. The Aizu War is another important event that makes us think about what we should pass on to the future.
Yamagata, for a long time we have talked a lot about this Aizu War, but today I would like to discuss a deeper truth that has never been touched upon.
I feel the same way, Mr. Yoho. War has many facets, and sometimes it is difficult to see the truth. Today, let us discuss frankly what is in our hearts with each other.
The Aizu War, which we fought in, was a symbolic clash of old and new values. However, I am still pained that our resistance is often perceived simply as an outdated act.
Yoho Dono, I have never thought that your clan's actions were outdated. We, on the side of the new government, understood that there were profound reasons for the Aizu clan's actions.
Yamagata, I am a little relieved to hear those words. However, the treatment of Aizu after the war was over was very harsh for many of the clansmen and people. Do you have any thoughts on that point?
Certainly, the post-war treatment was harsh. It was a measure to establish our authority as a new government and to unify the country quickly, but in hindsight, a more lenient approach might have been taken.
We just wanted to protect our land, our people, and most of all our pride.
I understand that pride. War is a place where many such pride clashes.
Yamagata, what were your feelings during the war?
As a member of the new government, I was in the position of having to make sometimes ruthless decisions. But it was never my sincere desire.
Do we fully understand each other about the pain and loss that war has caused?
Perhaps there are some aspects that we do not fully understand. However, I hope that by discussing them here today, we can shorten the distance between them, if only a little.
Our fight has taken the lives of many young people. In the face of this fact, we are forced to reconsider the significance of war.
While it is difficult to find meaning in the war, it is also true that it opened a new era.
Many lives were sacrificed for a new era. That is the irony of history.
History is sometimes cruel, but its lessons are valuable for those of us living in the future.
Mountain Prefecture, I have learned a great deal through my dialogues with you. If I have been able to clear up some of the misunderstandings that I have had, that is a big gain.
The same is true for me, Yobo Dono. I am truly grateful that we were able to look back on the past and face it with sincerity.
We hope that our dialogue will provide some insight for all students of history.
And we hope that our experience will serve as a lesson for future generations. Thank you very much.